Hello, Facebook. I am coming to you live from my studio. And let me just tell you, we just put the boys to bed and it's been a crazy night. So that's why I'm a few minutes late. So thanks for being patient. Listen, I am Melissa Lewis with Melissa Lewis Art, and I am going to be painting, sorry about that, a very simple nativity scene for y'all tonight. And actually tonight is the first time I'm doing Facebook Live and Instagram Live at the same time. So it's kind of interesting getting used to all of the cameras and all of that. So you'll have to be patient with me for a little bit. But anyways, yeah, so I've got two different nativity scenes here. One of them is Mary and Joseph with baby Jesus. And the other is just a very simple baby Jesus. So if you wanted to paint with me, this is the perfect time. And this makes a great Christmas gift, or it's great to just keep it for yourself and add to your Christmas decorations. Nothing's wrong with that. But yeah, so when you join, if you will do me a favor and say hi and tell me your name, just so that I know everything's working right and everyone is here. Actually, I just realized that I never did go live on Instagram. I never hit the button. So now I'm live. Hi, Instagram. I thought I went live on you about 5 minutes ago and I didn't. So let me reintroduce myself really quickly. I'm Melissa Lewis with Melissa Lewis Art. And tonight I'm going to be painting a very simple nativity scene. You can see here. There you go. And hi Lynn, hi Debbie, hi Jennifer. Listen, yeah, make sure you say hi when you come on. And what would be amazing is if you could share this video. I do a lot of these lives, and I always ask that you share, just because there's two reasons. One is if you want to remember how to do this, or if you can't remember how to do this and you share it, it's going to be saved on your timeline forever. So you'll have it to go back and refer to. And the other is it just helps me, especially on Facebook. If you share this with the algorithm and all of that, it helps more people see the video and helps get my page out there. And so you're just helping little old me every time you click that share button or comment. So just keep that in mind, if you would. And be sure you say hi so I can say hi back. Hey Jody, hey Lynn. Okay guys, so let me tell you. The first thing I did, I went ahead and painted the background on my canvases, just for the sake of time. So I'm hoping that my little guys who are asleep in the room just right next to me will do well tonight and really sleep through this. But in the interest of time and your time, I painted the background. Y'all don't need to see me do that. It's super easy. All I did was I layered the colors I wanted to use. Hi, Kim. And I just chose some neutral colors. You can do whatever colors you'd like to do. You could, but I suggest neutral only because it goes with so much, as far as you're going to be using this at Christmas. And if you do, you know, the traditional reds and greens, with a simple scene, it's just kind of harder, especially if you give it away as a gift. It's just harder to incorporate that into the decorations. So I chose a brown and a light gray for the top. And then, because I'm me and I like to go bold and I like color, underneath the gray I have some pops of green and turquoise, if you can see that just showing through. I've always got to have some color in everything I do, so, you know, there's that. So yeah, so these two are the same. And to see the finished product, you can see I added some metallic gold. I don't know if you can see that in the camera very well. You don't have to use that if you don't want to, but it does, just because it's Christmas, it just makes it more festive. So what I'm going to do tonight, I'm going to actually start with a smaller one. I'm going to start with the baby Jesus. And I'm all set up differently than I normally am. So for the sake of just being on the camera and for y'all to be able to see this easy. So I'm going to have to get used to where everything is. Normally I have everything right where I normally use it. But this works out just fine. So Okay. All right, so I'm using a palette knife. You can use a paintbrush. I just like to use a palette knife. Usually it's my tool of choice. I just, oh, the baby's tiny. Let's see here. Can you see it, Lynn? There we go. It's abstract. So that's why when you use a palette knife, you have to have the mindset of it's not going to be perfect. It's not an actual real life representation. It's very, it's just an abstract. And so when you use a palette knife, you just have to be loose and you kind of have to be free with how you put everything on the canvas. This one you can see, it's a little bit bigger, so you can see it a little bit more, how I use the palette knife. You can see how I used it to add highlights, and I used it for everything. Now I did come in with a brush and added some of the dark brown here, just so I could have something to divide up the different shapes. And I highlighted a little bit with the gold with the brush, and the star I did with a brush. And the paint I'm using is, oh, that's okay, Lynn. Ask away. I'm happy to show you whatever I need, however I can do it to help. So the paint I'm using is acrylic paint. That is my paint of choice. When you're working on canvas, for me, it's easier to use acrylics. I love these Artist Lofts. These are like a heavy body paint. So it just kind of, it goes on. See if you can see there's texture in here. And you can see that texture coming through in the paint. With the light, I'm trying to move it so you can see a little bit of that texture. Hey, Mandy. So I like to use those. And then, of course, I've mentioned before, I also just use regular old house paint from good old Lowe's or Home Depot. You can't go wrong with that. The reason I like to use that kind of paint, I have nothing against using those expensive artist brand made for artist paints. Nothing against that at all. But I think my background being decorative painting, I'm just so used to being able to go and get the exact specific color that I have in mind or that I need. And so, and plus I already have so much of this from those types of jobs. So it just works well for me. So I'm using that type of paint. And then of course, if you watched some videos before, or even I've written blogs about what I always use this type of medium. It's a gloss heavy gel. And so you don't have to use them for these, but for the house paints, I like to mix this in to give it that body and that texture. It also gives it a little bit of a sheen, but not too much, but I like that. So it's just up to you. Now, if you don't have this, you can just use paint. It's okay. Any kind of paint will work. I got the Martha Stewart brand for the gold. She's got great colors. Her pigments are really strong. A lot of these, and these types of bottles, I don't care for as much because just the pigments aren't that great. And they're really thin and kind of transparent as well. So, yeah, use what you got, Debbie. I'm with you. You got to use what you got. So yeah, so Martha Stewart brand on the craft paints is a great brand. And this gold in particular, there's lots of different golds. This one I love. Let's see what this one's called. Well, I don't see a name on here. Oh, it's just gold. Just gold, but there's yellow gold and there's antique gold. When you go looking for gold, you'll see there's several different golds. But this is a great true gold, not too yellow, just soft. I like that. All right, so let's start with the Manger. How about that? Let's go ahead. I'm going to add a dark brown to my palette. And then I've got a lighter brown. I had some of these colors mixed up already from earlier, but some of them have dried up, so I'm just going to add a little bit more here. Let's see here. There's my texture. You are not seeing Debbie's comments, Lynn. Lynn, because Debbie is on Facebook and you are on Instagram. So, hey Kim, I'm so happy to see everybody I know from the different social media platforms. It's so funny. All my Instagram friends and all my Facebook friends, and all in, well, 2 different places, but I get to see you all at the same time. So that's pretty fun. I did a poll today over my Instagram stories and asked, of all the Instagram people, are you more likely to leave Instagram and go over to Facebook when I announce things like doing the video or what have you, or just say, nah, I'll just catch it whenever you're on Instagram? And overwhelmingly everyone said Instagram only. They're not going to leave Instagram to go over to Facebook. So I worked really hard tonight to try to figure out how to do both at the same time. And it does take some getting used to. So hopefully y'all don't mind me looking in 2 different places. Because it's kind of weird. But that's okay. I made it work. Let's see here. Hi, Mondo. Okay. So I'm going to hold this up so y'all can see me do this. All right. So basically the manger it's just an X. The top portion is a little bit curved like a basket. And then you're going to do the 2 legs. And because we're using a palette knife, just remember, it does not have to be a perfect representation. So I'm just going to start in the middle. And I'm using my palette knife here, and I'm just going to curve it around like this. And make my basket. And then I'll get let a little bit more of my palette knife to make the legs. Just bring those down. And I don't want to go all the way down to the bottom of the canvas. I want to keep it up a little bit, just because, like I said, I'm going to frame this out a little in the gold. So I try to make sure it's not on the very bottom of the canvas there. Okay. And I will have to use my blow dryer tonight, so y'all will have to bear with that. But I'm going to have to use it just a little bit to get this kind of going. So now I'm kind of going on the edges with a little bit of a darker, but I'm going to come back when it's dry and really put that in there, and that just kind of forms that shadow. So hopefully you can see that. Okay, so then I'm going to go in, while that dries just a little bit, I'm going to go ahead and paint a manger on the one with Mary and Joseph. So let's see, you have to determine how big you want to make the manger. And like I said, I don't want it to be at the bottom. I want it to kind of sit up a little bit, and just make your little bowl shape there with your knife. Does not have to be perfect. You don't even have to fill in every single area. Like you can see right here, I left the middle just kind of open. And I just like that. I mean, you can do it if you want to fill it all in perfectly, you can. Debbie, that's kind of funny. Like Bob Ross. Y'all, I really did watch Bob Ross, though. When Bob Ross was alive and did all of his shows, I just love watching that kind of stuff. And then I do my little legs. I hear my little my 4-year-olds over there singing. It's the sweetest thing. I wish I could hear it. Okay, so there is manger number 2. Hey, Christy. Oh, I'm sorry your service is awful. You're so sweet to pop in, though, with that bad service. And I know you're at Canton, Christy. And can I tell you, I lived in Houston briefly. And Mandy's on here, too. Mandy, I don't know if you ever went to Canton or not. But I went to Canton, I think, twice. And it's amazing. And it's not anything that you can do in one day. It takes several days if you want to see the whole thing. But I got so much stuff there. Thank you for sharing, Christy. Thank you. Thank you, Debbie. Okay. So, let's see here. Now I'm going to have to use the blow dryer just for a minute. I tried experimenting today to figure out if there's a way to do this without using the blow dryer, and there's just still not. Yeah, Mina, you need to go. Okay, so I'm going to turn this on really quick. I'll do it fast. I don't know if you can still hear me talking or not. Can y'all hear me over the hair dryer, or do I just need to wait? There's some silent time. You don't have to get it completely dry. You just want it kind of surface dry so that when you use other colors, you don't pull it in those other colors. Okay, I think that's good. Hi, Debbie. Oh, you can't hear me while I'm using the blow dryer? Oh, good. So I don't have to just quit talking? Because it's always just weird when you're just sitting on here not talking. But, okay. So now you can see baby Jesus. He is wrapped in a blanket. Can you see that? And I just used a soft blue. So again, this is not anything that has to be perfect. So I'm just going to eyeball it and just kind of paint the shape of what I think that would look like. And it does not need to be perfect at all. As I was painting these today, it's so funny. It made me think about, obviously painting the Nativity makes you think about Christmas. But I don't know, have any of you ever seen the movie? And it's a little bit older. I don't know how many years it's been, but there's a movie that they made called The Nativity. I don't know who was in it, so don't ask me. But I know it was at least over 10 years ago because it was before we had any kids. And it's such a great movie because it's specifically just about the story of Mary and Joseph and leading up to Jesus's birth. It actually ends with the birth of Jesus. So it's just such a sweet, sweet movie. You should definitely check it out. I think they play it on TV, might be on Netflix. Check on Hulu. I need a what, Patricia? I can't read that last part. I need a zoom. This is as close as I can get. So, okay, so now on this one here, I'm just going to paint the almost like triangular shapes or cone shapes for Mary and Joseph. And again, does not have to be perfect. Just remember, this is just really representative. So, has anybody ever seen that movie, The Nativity, or anybody ever heard of it? Every time my husband and I tell someone about that movie, they kind of look at us like, never heard of that movie. But we actually went and saw it in the movie theater, and I bawled my eyes out. Part of the reason it's so special to us, though, is just around the time that we saw it was when we were still walking through our infertility and just waiting to see how God was going to make us a family. It's a long, long story I won't go into, but it took me a while to get to the point where I wanted to adopt, and actually seeing that movie, actually really was a pivotal moment for me, and realizing that maybe we needed to walk the path of adoption. So, God, I can't recommend that movie enough. It's so good. So good. Okay. So now we'll do Joseph. Patricia, I can't zoom in, but I can hold it a little as close as I can. And, you know, I'm trying just at least to let you see kind of how I'm moving my wrist and all of that. So with Joseph, I'm going to come up a little bit higher because obviously, more than likely, Joseph was taller than Mary, but, you know, we don't really know. We'll just assume. just dragging that paint down. And it's thick because I added that texture to it. So it makes it so much easier to drag. If you had not put the texture medium in this, that's okay. You can still use a palette knife. It just doesn't have that pull look where you can kind of see through the other layers, if that makes sense. All right, so let's see here. Try that down. Oh, thank you, Kimberly, for sharing. Y'all, every time you share, I appreciate it so much. I can't even tell you. It just helps my page. You know, everybody talks about Facebook's algorithm. So every time you share, it just helps my page get seen by more and more people, which helps me get my art to more and more people. So there's just the shapes, and they just kind of look like blobs right now. But you'll go in at the end, and you'll make it look more, I'm just set that right here, look a little bit more realistic. Okay, so I hate it, but I'm going to have to turn on the hairdryer one more time. Well, it's not the last time. But it won't be as long. Okay, I think it's good. Okay, so what I used earlier is just kind of like a skin tone, a creamy peachy color skin tone, and it's a little bit light. So I'm going to try one a little bit darker so you can just see it better. It didn't really pop off the paint like I wanted it to. So let's see here. I'm going to try just a flesh tone. You can use, if you don't have an actual flesh tone color, you can just experiment with your oranges and your pinks and your whites until you get something that you like fair enough. And you can add some browns in there to make it just a little bit more realistic. Oh, thank you, Debbie. That is so sweet. It's just fun for me. I think a lot of people on my Facebook page, I've got a lot of new people on here. So most of you, though, who've been around know that really painting is like my form of therapy. I've been a person who's created almost my whole life, really. And see, so, okay, right here, I got a little drip and I messed up. And I tell my son this all the time because he's actually really gotten into art. And he, I don't know if you can hear me now or not, but he likes it when things are perfect. And so he doesn't like to make mistakes or mess up. So I try to tell him all the time, especially with paint, it's just paint. It's okay. You can fix it. And all I did was I just wiped it off with my finger. And then if I want to, I can go back over it later with a blue. So if that happens, just go with it. Okay, it's just paint. So let's see here. All right, so I think that's about how big I want his face. And you can see, I mean, it is not perfect by any means. It's just like a blob right now. But we'll go back in later and give it some dimension. And add a little bit of features to it. Okay. So there is baby Jesus's head. And now let's do Mary and Joseph's head. If it makes it easier for you too, you can go on top of your paint with, you can use a pencil, or what I like to use actually is those little pastels, oil pastels. I like to use those. Sometimes I'll use a color that kind of complements the colors I use already. So if it shows through, I don't mind that. Sometimes with a pencil showing through, it just depends on the look you're going for. You don't really want it to show. So, but if it makes you feel better to go in beforehand with a pencil and just sketch out your shape. Hey, Cindy. Hey, Jackie. That's Jackie's my mother-in-law, and you are out of town and watching this, so thank you. Okay, so now we're just going to draw Mary's head. And you want it to be an oval shape, pointed in the direction where she would be looking down at the baby. So if you see, I have that kind of at an angle to where she would be looking that direction. And we're going to do the same for Joseph. Just an oval shape where he would be looking down. And again, this doesn't have to be a perfect circle or oval because it's all representative. And when it's not perfect, in my opinion, it just makes it more interesting. And then we're going to go in, like I said, in a little bit and use a lighter color and a darker color just to add a little bit of dimensions in their faces. So hopefully you can see. Oh, let's put the baby Jesus in there while we're doing it, huh? All right. So let's see. Show you this one. For this one here, you can see I just really did. I didn't do a blanket on him, but you can do a blanket if you want. I just kind of did the head and the body, and then added some highlights. And you can have him, obviously you can have him facing any direction you choose. That does not matter by any means. Hopefully y'all can see this. It's so much easier to paint on a bigger platform for me than it is smaller. Especially when using a palette knife. But hopefully y'all can see kind of how I'm moving and get the idea. Okay, so I kind of went down over the manger. Hi, Allison. I'm painting with acrylics, Allison, and I'm using a palette knife. Hopefully that answers your question. I can only see half of it. I had to rig our iPad so that I could be both on Facebook and Instagram, so I can only see half of your comments. So I'm kind of guessing what you're saying. So hopefully that's what you're asking and I answered your question. But I am using just canvas with acrylic paints and a palette knife, and later I'll go back in with a pointed tip brush just to use some, add in some highlights and dimensions. So obviously you can see these shapes are not perfect. But that's the look I'm going for. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and work on the manger just a little bit while I let the baby's face dry a little bit. These are my favorite brushes that you can get at any art store, craft store. I order these from Amazon a lot, but just because I don't like to go out of the house for things if I don't have to. And you can order them in packages. Packages of different sizes from Amazon too. But these are just, I think the brand is Royal. And they are not expensive at all. Jamie and I use these a lot, like when we have to do murals and stuff like that for Off the Wall Home. And so I just continued using them in painting, and they work great. You do not, it's just another example of how you don't have to have expensive tools, because these are the cheapy ones. I mean, these are not expensive. Which is a good thing, because my boys use them and they get messed up, or the paint, they'll leave them out and let the paint dry. So, okay. So I'm just going to use my brush and just kind of go in and just, this really kind of defines the manger, so it just kind of pops off the background. And it just also adds that shadow. I wish y'all could hear my boys right now. They're in there laughing. So they share a room. My 3-year-old and 4-year-old share a room, which is interesting. And they're either fighting or they're laughing. Hi, Rhonda. Thank you for joining. Let's see. And we've got lots of people over on Instagram too. So yes, if you have any questions about what I'm doing, just ask questions. And I'm trying to follow and make sure I can answer everything that I can. Okay, so I just kind of added some color there. And now I'm going to, let's see here. I'm going to have to break out the hair dryer again, y'all. Because I'm going to have to dry his face so I can, because now we're to the point on this one where we want to add all the highlights and lowlights. So if you're just joining us, and I've got a lot of people who are just now popping on, I am Melissa Lewis, and I am an artist. I use mostly acrylic paints on canvas, and I love to share any tips and tricks I can along the way. This past week, a few ladies, other creatives, ladies that I'm friends with, started doing a week of lives for Christmas themed, and so I joined in with them, and today was my day. And I will, after I do this live, I'm going to post who is doing a live tomorrow, and then the ones who have already gone, so that you can see their lives before, because they're all great. They've made some ornaments, they've made some gift tags, all things that you can do yourself for Christmas. So now I took a little bit of a lighter color. You can see I'm going to add a lighter color just on the top of his face. Not much. I mean, really and truly, I'm not doing much to it. But it just, you know, again, gives it that dimension. So it looks more three-dimensional. And then I'm going to put some white on my palette. I'm going to whiten up that shade of blue to just add to the blanket. Again, just to give it that texture. Always keep white handy. I use white all the time. And some people are picky about their whites. I just use this pre-made sample from Lowe's. Or if I have one, I'll buy just the quart of white. I'm not picky about what white it is. Whatever white I have on hand is a white I'm going to use. So, Jennifer, do you sell these made? Actually, yes. Everything I sell, everything I paint, I list on my website, and you can buy them online at melissalewisart.com. These specific nativity scenes are new, so they have not been listed in the shop. But once I finish these will be listed. And as I was kind of thinking through what type of Christmas paintings I wanted to paint, I got really excited and got lots of ideas in my head. So I may be painting some other things that I like for Christmas. And if I do, I will be listing those on my website as well. So definitely check the website if you're interested in purchasing. Okay, I think I got that light enough. So I'm just going to add, I'm just dragging it. You can see that. Hi, Rhonda. You bought a wooden disc at Target. See, you can only read on the lives, you can only read the first 2 lines of a comment. And when it gets longer than that, it doesn't show you. So, but that's okay. I'll go back and read it after the live and see what you had to say. So, you see there, I just added a lighter color just to do some dimension there. And I'm going to go ahead and do that. I forgot to do their faces, but I'm going to just add a little bit of that lighter color here. Just along the edges. Okay. And now, since I've got Mary and Joseph out, I'm going to add a lighter color, flesh tone color to their faces. And turn the canvas. Don't keep it all the same direction. When you turn it, you can really just kind of work the paint a lot better. Don't think you have to keep it all the time facing up and down the correct way. Okay. So now I'll go ahead and add some brown to the manger here. This time I'm just using a palette knife just because it was in my hand, and so just goes to show you can really use what you have. I wish I knew what my boys were doing because I can hear them in there just giggling and laughing. Hi, Elizabeth. Thank you so much. Thank you. What I like about Facebook is I can see everybody's names. So on Instagram, when you join in, say hi and tell me what your name is, because a lot of times whatever your handle is may not be your name. So make sure you tell me your name so I can say hi to you on Instagram too. Kim, I thank you for saying I make it look easy. Once you get used to it, once you get used to just moving the palette knife around, it really is easy, and you can really get going super fast. Actually, the faster you go, the easier it is, because you're just not really, you're not thinking too much, and you just don't want to think too much, because then you start to mess up because you're trying to make it look perfect, and that's just not the look we're going for. We're not going for perfect. Okay, I think my boys are maybe about to get into some trouble here. Let's see here. All right, so what do I want to do next? I think I'm going to darken that flesh tone color a little bit. And just do along the bottom edge there, because you wanted to see where it's kind of shaping. Yep, I hear my boys. They're not too happy right now. We had to change up the bedtime routine tonight, and so they're a little off. Hi, Patricia from Michigan. Yeah, tell me where you're from. I bet you are cold in Michigan right now. We had a cold spell here a few days ago, but it's gotten back into the 50s, which is fine with me. I like the 50s. Oh, I put the wrong one. Okay. So now I'm going to go in and paint their head. I don't know what their head wraps are called. There's probably a correct term, and I don't know it, but I'm going to go ahead and paint those. Hi, Elizabeth from Kentucky, Bowling Green, Kentucky. Ooh, Canada. Got some people from Canada. Ooh, I bet y'all are really cold. I am a southern girl, and I can only do certain levels of cold and for a certain period of time. You get me past a certain amount of time being cold, and I just kind of go a little crazy. Okay, so I'm just using a cream, and use whatever color you want. Add whatever colors you like that suit your style. Again, like I said earlier, I wanted to go neutral just for me, because I don't know if I'm going to be giving this as a gift or keeping it for myself. So it's just easier to use neutral when you're doing that. Let's see here. I did not add the texture to this paint. So I don't know if you can see as I'm painting it, the difference that makes when you don't have the texture in there. It's just harder to kind of pull. But it's still workable. Okay, so you just want to bring that all the way down. And I think I'm going to have to add that in there because it's going on too thin for my taste. So there's just the basic shape there for Joseph and his head wrap. Oh, Debbie, how long have I been painting? I'm sorry. I have been painting, gosh. Well, if you go back to my decorative painting business, which is Off the Wall Home, that I do here locally with my business partner, Jamie, we've been working together for about 15 years. About as long as I've been married. A year shy of how long I've been married. And we've done all kinds of murals. Actually, my first job, before I started working with Jamie and I was just doing this solo, my very first paid job was oddly enough, painting baby Jesus. My very first job was in the Ascension scene of Jesus. And it was up in a chapel, and I was up on scaffolding about 12 feet in the air, and it was like a life-size, well, bigger than life-size painting. Talk about intimidating. You said I'd make it look easy. I'm telling you, it was very intimidating. So whether you feel like it's easy or not, painting is just do it for the fun of it, and don't think about what the outcome of it's going to be. Just do it because it's fun. So yeah, so I've been painting, I guess, professionally for that long. And then my family moved to Iowa, goodness, 7 years ago maybe? And so that kind of changed the course of our decorative painting business, obviously. I was about 11 hours away, so I couldn't do that with Jamie, and we had a 1-year-old. So I was no longer doing that. And that's when I really started to play around with different, just different areas. I started sewing and embroidering and crocheting, and I started painting with different things such as watercolors, and started painting illustrations, which I still paint. I like to hand letter quotes and scripture, and I sell those as well on my website as prints. But I really started dabbling with that, and I opened up an Etsy shop doing that. And then when I moved back to Memphis, Jamie and I started working together again, and we started painting. Well, I mean, we've been play painting for forever, but we really started doing this on canvas with acrylic paint, and I started selling it and showing my work doing this probably about 1.5 years, 2 years ago. It's about how long I've had the Melissa Lewis Art page. But I have always been drawing or painting or some form of creating something. Alright, so we're doing Mary's head wrap here. And I like to just kind of draw in the shape, and then I'll fill it in. So I realize I'm kind of going back and forth on these two paintings, and I hope that y'all are able to follow that, but it's really just easier to do since they're so similar. Okay. So now you can see Joseph and Mary. You're really starting to take shape. And then when this dries a little bit, I'm going to go in and add like the low lights and the highlights. Y'all see that comment from my husband. My husband just joined. Y'all say hi to Bart. I always tell him when I do these that he can't watch just because I'm already so nervous, and knowing people I know are watching just makes it 10 times worse for me. So you're not supposed to be watching this, but that's okay. I will forgive you. All right, so let's go back to baby Jesus. And now this is pretty much done except for all the details. So I'm going to get that brown off my brush. And I'm going to go in with, let's see, I'm just going to highlight a little bit. Oh, that's, my brush just broke a little bit. Thank you, Debbie. You're so sweet. I don't think I'll ever get used to doing this. No matter how many I do, I'm always going to be somewhat nervous. I mean, I guess that's okay. My husband's a pro at this kind of stuff. He has been in the ministry for a really long time, and so speaking is his thing, and he is good at it. You would think I would have picked up some pointers along the way, but it's just for certain people. So I'm just picking up a little bit of my blue and darkening it a little bit with the brown so that I can add a little bit to the blanket to add that dimension in there. Not too much, just a little. Okay, and then I'll go in with the brown and just kind of drag, not perfectly. I'm not going to outline the whole thing because then it starts to look like a doodle rather than a art piece. I don't know how to describe it, which is fine. It looks more like what my illustrations look like rather than my paintings, I guess. That's a good way to say it, when you outline it just perfectly. So I'm really just kind of hitting the edges just a tad. And then I'll do the same thing with the manger. Just a tad. So you can kind of see the shape a little bit defined. See that? Not all over, not in all the, I didn't draw a perfect line tracing the whole form, just the edges. And now I'm going to go in and with the gold. And I am going to first use my palette knife, and I'm just hitting that straight edge in the paint, and I'm going to drag it just so you can see. Well, that was a little much, so I'll go over that in a minute if I need to. I kind of like it. We'll see. Okay, and then same thing, do a little bit of gold on his head. A little bit outlining his blanket, just a little, not a lot. Okay. And now, I like to do this around the edge of the canvas, just to frame it out in that gold. And all I'm doing is, there's no formula for this. Again, you just have to be kind of easy going. Just do it. It's just paint. And if you feel like you've put too much, you can go right back and paint over it. If you feel like you haven't done enough, you can go back and add more. Start with a little and then step away and look at it, and then you can add more. Usually that usually works for most things. When you start with a little and then you go back and add, it's easier to do that. Oh, thank you, Elizabeth. It is hard to paint on Facebook Live. I know, you know. It is. It's hard, but that's okay. Okay, so I framed that out, and now I'm going to do the star. And I realize we may not finish up Joseph and Mary. I'm going to try, don't worry. But I realize that we've been on here for a while, so I don't want this to be too long of a video. All right, so what I'm going to do, I took my brown, and I'm just going to do freehand a star. Now, you don't have to do the star. You can be done here. You can call it quits. You can say this is done. I would finish out the edges, which I'm going to do, with a darker brown. I may do gold. I'm not quite sure. We'll see how I feel. But if you want to stop here, this is good. This is, I think, a perfect, just simple nativity scene. But I'm going to add the star, just because that is such a huge part of the nativity story, right? I mean, where would the wise man be without the star? And the shepherd, where would they be? Okay, so you see, I'm just adding, not perfect. This is not, all the lines are not equal. They're not all spaced out perfectly. I just don't want them to be. I don't want it to look perfect. I like it when it looks a little free-handed. And now I'm going and hitting that star with the gold. The brown just gives it that dimension, because if you kind of did, sometimes if you do the gold on top of a light color, it really doesn't show. So I like to do a darker color underneath to really make it just pop off that painting. All right. And baby Jesus is done. How do you like that? Can you see? I will post pictures of these later to Instagram and Facebook so you can see the finished products. And I will more than likely have these listed on the website. Let's see, Joseph and Mary. Okay, really quickly, I don't think I'm going to be able to finish Joseph and Mary, but let me show you how I kind of like to do this. Again, I want to define a little bit of what they're wearing. So I'm going to go just lightly on the edges here and give it that shape. If you can see, hopefully you can see. Again, this just really makes it kind of pop. I will do a little bit around their faces, not a lot. And then the bottom. So can you see with those two, do you see the difference that makes? One's done and one's not. You don't have to do this part. You can skip this step if you don't want to have that, but I just kind of like how it gives it just gives it more shape. And there's Mary. All right, and just so you can see, I'll add a little bit of gold. They're still a little wet, so it's going to be hard to do a lot, but I'm just doing just barely on their faces. And then I'm going to drag a little bit of gold on their robes or whatever they're called. Okay. And the reason I like to bring the gold in here is just to balance out, because if I just have gold here, or just have gold on the star, it might look a little, I don't know, it just unbalanced. So I like to add just little pieces of gold throughout to kind of make it more easy on the eye. And add a little bit of gold to the manger and around Jesus. Now I didn't add the brown on there yet, so I still need to do that. And let's add the gold at the top. And because this is a bigger space, bigger canvas, we can add a little bit more gold. Thank you, Debbie. Jane, sorry if I said that wrong. There will be a replay, yes. And actually, if y'all would, if you could share this video, that would be so amazing. And then if you wanted to go back and rewatch it, you'll have it saved to your own timeline, and you can watch it at any time. And if you just want to do it out of the kindness of your heart, every time you share, it just helps my page. So I would appreciate it. But I hope that you have enjoyed this. It went a little bit longer than I intended, and I'm so sorry. But hopefully you can kind of get the idea, you know, of how simple this is. And there is Mary and Joseph. Now I still have to add, the star, and I still have to go in and I think, what did I not do? Oh, I didn't go around the baby Jesus on this one. But here is the final piece. If you're just joining or joining in late, this is the final piece of the Nativity. Mary and Joseph and baby Jesus, mom and dad. And then here is the final piece of Jesus in the manger. Okay. Here you go. So, if you have questions about the tools I used or the supplies I used, I did mention that further back in the video. So again, if you share it, you'll have it saved to your timeline, and you can go back and watch that. I will post the supplies I used if you would like to get some as well. I can leave them in a comment later on if you want to go back and take a look at that. And I may make this kind of into a blog post, and if I do that, then I'll have the supplies on there just to make it easier for you to reference what it is that you need. So thank you so much for joining in on this, and for all of you who shared, thank you for sharing. And I had fun. I hope you like this simple version of a Christmas painting. It really would make a great teacher's gift, or just a gift for anyone really. But there's also nothing wrong with keeping it for yourself. So anyways, you guys, thank you so much for watching, and y'all have a good night. And again, I'm going to list who is going to be doing the live tomorrow, because you're not going to want to miss those. Those have been the best lives, and I'll make a whole list that you can go back and watch, and it will really help you with your Christmas and gift giving. So, all right, you guys, thanks so much.